it's Noelle. I wanted to offer you a video with some of my insights and some of my, I guess, my side of the story. Not really my side of the story, but my perspective and my take on things. So if you have subscribed to us, you have probably potentially come to us through watching the video that we did with AsianBlackCouples.com and Lily and her channel, and our interview about being a Blasian couple. But if you've stumbled upon our channel by some other means, perhaps go back and watch that video. We also posted a video about a response to that. But so anyway, I just wanted to be able to comment on some of the things that were raised by doing that video. And then also Hershel had done his video. So I know many people were commenting on wanting to kind of hear from my side and hear from me. So here I am. So hey. And so I just wanted to be able to share some thoughts with you all. As you know, if you've been watching our videos, I am adopted. I was born in South Korea and I was adopted when I was 16 months old. So I was adopted to a Caucasian family, to a white family in the US. When I was adopted, I lived in Michigan at the time. So I came from Korea to Michigan. And then we later moved to Indiana. So I actually grew up in a small town in Indiana. If you're not familiar with Indiana, it's in the Midwest, and it's where I grew up was a pretty small town and very dominant white. So that was my existence, I guess, after coming from Korea to the U.S., coming to a white family. There was my parents, and then they had 4 biological children, 2 girls and then 2 boys, and then they adopted me. So coming into an already established family, you know, that already brings some certain dynamics and issues, and then bringing in a transracial child or transracial adoptee into the mix, and lack of education, and there's so many things. And at some point I will do a video to talk about my adoption issues and my experiences being an adoptee. Some of this video will kind of touch on that stuff, but this is not meant to be like a full out adoption video. But it definitely presented some issues growing up in a white family in a white town. And this was in the 80s when it happened. So, you know, I grew up, I guess I was, I grew up, I guess mostly in the 90s and in the 2000s, but, you know, I graduated high school when I was in 2001. So going to school in mostly the 90s is what I remember. And, there were points in my life where I, you know, dealt with racism and discrimination and issues at school, and I would come home with that and with those issues, and my parents I would say my mom. My dad was not the most present in my life or in our lives. I mean, he was there, like he lived with us and everything like that, but emotionally, I wouldn't say he was very present in our lives. And so I would come home and like share these stories about things that kids said, and it just kind of got brushed off of like, oh, kids say mean things, but they don't really mean it. I just, looking back on it, like part of me thinks that they just didn't have the tools to be able to talk about it. But part of it too is I kind of feel like they didn't see it as a big deal. They didn't see it as an issue. They weren't able to validate my experience. And there were times when I would go back and forth with my mom, who I would tell her, you know, I'm Korean. And she'd be like, no, you're an American. And so it was this like back and forth of like, no, but I'm Korean, but you're an American now. But I'm Korean, but you're an American now. But I was born in Korea, so that still makes me a Korean. But you live in America, so you're an American now. And like it was this like constant back and forth. And so I just got to the point where like, okay, for whatever reason, she doesn't want me to see myself as a Korean. or she doesn't want me to see myself as anything different. And I don't know that she expected me to see myself as being white, but I do remember times, and like, unlike some adoptees, like I never felt like so like some adoptees feel like they were white, or that some people really wanted to be white. I can't say that I ever went through any of those. I guess I felt like I was Asian, but maybe I wasn't, because this whole like identity piece that went back and forth. And like, there were times that I would look in the mirror and I would stare at myself and I'd be like, okay, and I'd look at my eyes and I'd look at my nose and my lips and everything. And I'd go back and forth and like, just stare at myself. And then I'd be like, the conclusion that I would come to, and this is what I would tell my mom. And again, I don't know how much of this was me trying to feel accepted, or trying to like buy into this mentality, or whatever it was. But I would say, I think I look less Asian now. Like, look, my eyes are rounder, and this is the conclusion that I would come to after these long sessions of staring at myself in the mirror. Bizarre, right? But that was my experience. And so, that was kind of my experience of being able, or not being able to address discrimination and racial issues and that kind of thing. So I kind of got to the point where like, okay, this is not a source. This is not a person that I can talk to. This is not a source of help that of when I need it. So I didn't really bring stuff up with them anymore. So I, would turn to friends, or I would just bottle everything up inside and just kind of deal with it that way. Sometimes my friends, I don't think it's not that I ever tried to talk to friends about discrimination or anything. So that just kind of became a thing that I bottled up inside and I kept to myself. When I was in middle school, I was very moody, but I had an external persona that was very bubbly. And if you asked anybody that knew me in my life how to describe me, like, bubbly would always be the number one word that they would come up with. And like, you're always happy, and you're this, and you're so much fun. And so it was like, that was what I had to be every day. And that's what I had to be to my family, and that's what I had to be to the people at school. And when I had days when the depression, let's just be real, when the depression got so bad that I would have, an off day, and people would be like, what crawled up your butt, and what's wrong with you today? And I would excuse it away and be like, I just have a headache. I'm just not feeling good today. But every time I had to do that, like, it killed me inside, because nobody really knew what it was like to be me. Nobody really knew who I really was. And so I turned to a lot of dark poetry. I wrote a lot of suicidal poetry. I would write letters about my funeral and imagine who would come to my funeral. Like, I was just in a very, very dark place. And like, I now know that I had depression, and that was kind of how I dealt with it. But I didn't have a resource. I didn't have an outlet. So, that was my teen years, whatever, right? So I learned that I couldn't talk about racial issues with my mom, and things just kind of went on. And so, when I was in high school, so I also want to talk about a little bit like how, the relationship with Hershel and I, like how that developed. But, when I was in high school, I dated a guy, and he was a black guy. And I'm pretty sure, well, my mom did know. My mom knew, but I think it was just because it was high school and it wasn't a big deal. Like, there never really seemed to be any issues from their end anyway. It was more just a high school, like, oh, we're going together kind of thing, and nothing too serious. Although on his end, his mom knew me because we were both in choir. His mom knew me and everything, and she liked me, but he wasn't able to like disclose that's his girlfriend, because she would have been upset that he wasn't dating a black girl. So that didn't really go anywhere. And that actually came up many, many times. Like, I dated another guy, And again, it was like these high school little relationships, and nothing serious or anything like that, but like, will you be my boyfriend? Will you be my girlfriend kind of thing, right? But there were times, like there was another guy that he couldn't, again, his family knew me, his family loved me as a friend and as a classmate, but he couldn't tell them that like, oh, that's my girlfriend. Because even though I'm Korean, his grandparents or whatever had issues with the Japs, his words. And so, because I'm Asian, well, I get lumped into that. And so there would have been issues there. So there was a lot of that, like growing up in my town, there was a lot of issues with that. And so it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, let me get through high school and let me get out of this town, right? So I didn't, I never really thought it was too much of an issue, dating a black guy or anything. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm dating a black guy. Like, it was just like, cool. I thought this boy was cute. He thought I was cute. Let's go together. But my mom is a lot of things. There were times that I would just kind of mess with her. And when I was in high school, because I didn't date a lot, so I had like little boyfriends kind of things, but I never like really dated in high school much. I guess maybe because I just wasn't about that scene. I was a really good student, and that was where I wanted to put my efforts and stuff. And I just wasn't interested in these little podunk boys. But there were times that, my mom would be like, well, you'll find the right guy. And I would just mess around with her, and I'd be like, or the right girl, even though I knew I wasn't gay or anything like that. But I just wanted to mess with her. That was just kind of my thing. And because I really wanted to see what her reaction would be. And she'd be like, well, I mean, I guess so. So I really just did it so I could get a good laugh. Because she did have issues with, and I will never understand this, she had issues with when I was in choir, I was in drama, I was in all of that. So a lot of the guys I hung around with were gay. Not every guy that's in choir, drama, or band is gay, but a lot of my friends that I hung with were. And so she really was bothered by the fact that I would like go shopping and hang out with these guys, but she wanted me to date. And so I never understood the fact that, like, okay, you have a gay guy who's clearly not interested in what I have to offer, but other than my fashion tips. And so you know what their intentions are, right? Like, you know that. You know they're not interested in me. I know that. But you'd rather me go out on a date to a movie and dinner with somebody who you don't know their intentions. And I never got that. And that was always a sore source of conversation for us. And so there were things like that, like, so not being able to talk about race with me, not being able to talk about discrimination, having issues with me having gay friends, and like not being able to handle that. So there were things that were adding up, right? So Hershel, I think, has also mentioned, or maybe it's been mentioned in another video, I was married before. I was married to a white guy, and that was not a good situation. That was a situation that we started dating young, and then we felt like that's where you were supposed to go with a relationship, was you were supposed to get married, right? It was a situation that we just weren't supposed to be married. We weren't supposed to be in that relationship. But for my own personal development and my own personal growth, and to get me here today to this point where I am now, I had to go through that. I had to go through that relationship. I had to go through all the drama and crap that brought in order for me to be able to be here today, to be married to Hershel, and to have these two wonderful girls, right? So I get that, and I accept that, and that's it is what it is. And so that marriage ended, and it was tumultuous, and there was issues all along the way. My family did not like him. He did not want to go to my family's functions. They didn't treat him well. But he also didn't treat me the greatest. And so I just felt like, okay, he also came from a family that wasn't up to standards for my family. So that also caused issues. And anyway, so that ended. And after that ended, I really had kind of come to a point in my own personal development where I just felt done. I felt done with a white world. My family had been white. I was kind of starting to see issues with my family, but not really. I was still very much like, they've still very much had control of me. And I was still very much that cheesy person and the yes man, and I'll do, I will be what you want me to be. And I was, and even though that's not what made me happy, that's not really who I was. They couldn't see that I had this dark side, and that I had issues, and that I had all of this like whole other person to me, right? Not that I was split personality or anything, but it just, I wasn't able to really show them who I was, and that I do hurt, and I had issues, right? And I couldn't talk about those because we just didn't do that in our family. So after that, after dating that guy or being married to that guy, and him not really understanding, like, I really made an effort that I wanted to not date any white guys. And so I that was my mission, was when I start dating, I'm not going to date any white guys. And I did not. So the very first date that I had, I went on a couple of dates with my brother's best friend. That was so PG, but it was nice because it got me out in the dating world, because I had started to feel like, well, here I am, I'm 26, and I've already been married and divorced, and dudes aren't gonna get down with that. They're not gonna like me. They're gonna think I'm damaged goods. Even though I didn't have kids or anything, I just felt like I was damaged, right? So going out with him, that was fun, and it just kind of eased me into the dating scene. At the time, I had some gay guy friends. That wasn't going to pan out, obviously, for any relationships. And my friends, they didn't have any other friends that they could try to connect me with. And I was in grad school. And so it just was kind of difficult to meet other people. And I'm not the kind to go out to the bars by myself to be like, hey, I'd go out with friends, but not really. I wasn't really looking to pick anybody up in bars anyway. So I turned to the internet, the interwebs, and I started out on Match.com, and God, trolls everywhere on that site anyway, because you could just search whatever criteria you wanted, and whoever popped up, you're like, I think I'm going to talk to her. And I'd be like, no, you're not. So I had people that couldn't use proper grammar, couldn't string a sentence together. And I'm like, no. There were a couple of people that I met, and I went on a date with an Indian guy from there. And yeah, no. One date, that was all I needed. And then I met a black guy, and we dated for a month. So we had met on Match, I think, and we dated for a month. And it was cool, but he wasn't really looking for a relationship. And as much as I thought I wasn't, I guess I was. Plus I didn't want to be a casual Betty, so, that was fine. That ended or whatever. And then I decided to get on eHarmony. Oh, and I think that might have been eHarmony. But then I got on eHarmony, started that profile. I think I had a month or something. And I met a Chinese dude. I went on a couple dates. And then I had met Hershel. And Hershel and I were both at the very end of our subscription, and we met each other. And so it was just kind of okay, it was meant to be. It was perfect timing, right? Because otherwise, I have no idea how I would have met Hershel had it not been for that. Ironically, though, we went to the same university, and I worked in the office where he my office was in the building where he used to hang out, and we probably passed paths at some point, but a university is a big place. And it's not like I was on this black radar of looking at every black guy back then. So that was in our earlier years before we knew each other. We probably crossed paths, so we just didn't know it. So started dating Hershel, and then things just blew up from there, right? And it was really meant to be, and I felt comfortable in this relationship. I felt like this is where I was supposed to be. This is the person that I was supposed to be with, and we were so much alike. We thought a lot of the same things. There were some things that we differed on. We now have kind of migrated to that thinking. We've been able to influence, I guess, each other's lives. But so flash forward, we had started dating, and I was on a weekend with my sisters. We used to do sisters weekends. And I don't know, we had been dating for maybe 2 months or something like that. And so, we were talking on the phone. I was like, I love you too, or I love you. And my sisters were appalled. And I felt like I was 16. And they're like, well, we just think you're moving too fast. And like, how can you say that you really love this guy and all this? And it was just like, I felt under attack. And I was like, holy crap. So I just felt, and I had just turned 27. So I was 27. I was no spring chicken. I'd already been married before. Like, I'd already been through this, right? And it's like, I'm a grown ass woman. Let me make my own decisions. If I know that I love this dude, then let me love this dude. Like, don't question. Because nobody has questioned you of, do you really love that guy? Like, so it was just, it started to really come into conflict because I felt like they were really trying to control me and control my life and control my decisions, and not trusting the fact that I had control over my life and that I knew what I was doing and I knew what I wanted and could then go out and get that, right? So that's where a lot of the issues started, with the controlling factors. And then, bringing Hershel around to my family, I think it was a lot of, they knew he was Black because I told them, and I think I had shared a picture with them and stuff. And I was like, he's so hot, he's so cute and everything. And I was like, he's a really nice guy, he's a great guy and everything. But I think that initially they didn't quite know how to interact with him. They never outright said anything to me, like, before they met them or anything about, like, him being Black or anything. So that was never brought up, like, prior to anything. But I think that they were a little intimidated of, like, what do we do? How do we talk to him? How do we relate to him? And what's he going to be like? And expecting, like, the weight of all Black questions that they have to be answered in this one man. He's pretty great, but he's not, like, the god of the Black man, I don't know. So then things started to get really bad because they were not warm and inviting, which my family's not that warm and inviting to a lot of people. But at the same time, my brother had started dating a girl, and, my brother is 7 years older than me. He had never brought anybody around the family. So then it was like this big deal. And they like all flocked to her because she was a girl and because she's white. So they all flocked to her and everything, and they were like peachy and welcoming, and they were not that way with Hershel. And so there were issues with that. And so then it was like this tug of war for me, being like in my family and having played that role for so long in that family, and then being in this relationship with Hershel, and this budding relationship, and me realizing, like, this is the guy that I want to be with. Like, this is gonna go somewhere, and I want to see where it goes. And so it was just this battle. And so there were things that were said behind my back, behind me knowing, but then I found out about them. Like, they didn't like him because they were comparing him to my ex, which they never gave him a chance. They never gave him the time of day. And then the race came into play. So then it got racial because Hershel was like, okay, let me try to like talk to them, because I had addressed the situation that, well, when my brother's wife came into the scene, like, they were all welcoming for her and everything, but they weren't that way with Hershel. And so then they were like, well, you have to make an effort to be a part of this family, and you have to, like, if we're talking, then you should come up and talk to us. And it's like, but that's not how it is in most families. It's just not how it is. Like, if somebody's new, you make the effort to go and welcome them, not make them fit in. And so that's kind of where that stemmed from. And then Hershel was like, well, let me talk to them. Let me address them. So then he made the phone calls. So after much, I guess, prodding from Hershel, he wanted to address, because he was going to be a man about the situation, and he wanted to talk to everybody in my family. So he made the phone calls individually to everybody in my family, addressing the situation and like why he felt hurt and everything. And so, they heard him out, but then it came down to my mom of like, my dad and saying the stuff that they did about like, well, if you're looking for a problem, then you're going to find one. And, and it's, I don't like you, but it's not because you're black. And it's like, if you have to say that, then that's exactly what it is. So you're saying that you're not okay with him because he's a black man. So then you're not okay with me because I'm with a black man. And so then it just became a very apparent that, okay, all of these things that have added up in my life, all of these things that have been issues, like you're racist. And you're a bigot, or you're not comfortable with things that are out. Okay, I have a cat tail. You're not comfortable with things that are outside of your norm and what you define as your norm, right? And so then that's when I had no time for that. I mean, it was still hard because I had this tug of war going on that this is my family, right? Like this is who I've spent my life with. And now they're going to basically turn away from me or treat me like this or not accept the person that I'm going to marry and the person that I'm going to have kids with and the person now that I've been married to for 5.5 years. And so it was just kind of, I had to pull back and I had to really figure out what was important in my life. And I slowly cut them out of my life. Making the moves that we did made it easier. That's probably why I was such a strong proponent of moving to New Mexico. Yeah, we had a lot of friends and I knew Indy and everything, but we also had been wanting something different. And then just being able to move physically away from my family and making that an easier process for me was very attractive. So moving to New Mexico, and then we moved to Seattle, which we're even farther away. So we're now 2 time zones away. But I mean, it's hard because my kids don't get this side of the family. My kids, they would have 2 aunts and 2 uncles and grandparents on my side of the family. But it hasn't happened because I'm not confident that they can fully accept the girls, that they are half black. I'm not confident that they could fully accept them. It's like they want me and they want the girls, but they don't want Hershel, and you can't have that. We're a package deal. We're a family. And so that's kind of where it stands. I cut ties with them. There have been limited communications. There's occasionally an email that goes back and forth between my mom and I. I have called a couple of times. The hard thing is that they're getting older, and I know that. Like, my mom was born in 41. So she's going to be 75 in February, and she's had some health issues and stuff throughout her life. So I know that time is not on my side in terms of that, but I'm also at the point that I'm the child and you're the parent. Even though we're all adults now, I still kind of feel like you're the parent. You're the one that needs to reach out to the child, right? Maybe I'm wrong in thinking that. You all may have comments, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of well, maybe you should try this and maybe you should try that. But at what point is it maybe they should try this and maybe they should try that? Because it shouldn't always be on me to have to try to solve everything. It shouldn't have to be on me to have to just accept everything. And that's where my frustration is. And so it is what it is. I mean, that's one of the most annoying phrases that we use in our society, but it is, right? That's where things are right now. My mom and I did exchange an email over Christmas, and that was it. And that was okay. I didn't call, I didn't email or anything on Thanksgiving. It kind of slipped my mind because I had been so embedded in family, in my family here, and making a good dinner and just making it a good day. And then once I realized Thanksgiving's passed and I didn't talk to my family, it hurts less now, I guess. Time has helped that. It still very much hurts that I had this family, or I have this family, but that's not a part of my life anymore. And it's not something that I'm comfortable with having as part of my life because they're not fully accepting. So I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know where this will go. Maybe I'll have a video. Maybe I'll have a video later this year with an update of like, hey, this breakthrough has happened, but I don't anticipate that. I also don't want to hope for that. So I'm living life the way that I need to live life and focusing on my family here and making sure that we have a good solid foundation and that the girls know that they're loved, and putting people in their lives that love all of us, that love their mama and their papa, and that love them. So that's what our priority is at this point. So this has been a very long video. I apologize. My camera cut off at several points, so I had to kind of connect this together. But hopefully you can appreciate my thoughts, my perspective on things. Like I said, I'll do a video in the future about adoption and my thoughts on adoption and stuff. I will tell you it's not popular opinion, but it is my experience. It is my story, and I own it. And anything that we post on our channel, they're our stories, they're our experiences. So I just expect and hope and appreciate that you can validate that as our story. And if it doesn't jive with your views or whatever, feel free to share that, but know that this is our story and that's what we have to share. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, or subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, so we know that we're on the right track with the videos and things that we share with the world on YouTube. And I hope to see you in future videos. So that's it for now. See you later.